Greetings viewers, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we've got another tool video, another Milwaukee power tool. I really wasn't going to purchase or review this tool, but you guys in the comments on the last video on the mid-torque asked about it. I got a lot of DMs on Instagram asking about it. So I went ahead and bit the bullet and made the purchase. As you see from the receipt here from HomeDepot.com, I purchased this myself. I did not get it from Milwaukee. Although Milwaukee, if you're watching, I'm a big fan. If you want to send me something, hit me up. That said though, you can tell this is going to be an unbiased review. I'm not paid to do it. I wasn't given the tool. It's my money, so here it goes. And as I said, I really wasn't planning to buy it, but you guys requested it. I have and have been using for about a year now the M12 Stubby, and it is one of my favorite tools from Milwaukee. Absolutely love this little impact. The Snap-on CT 761 14.4 impact was basically one of the best on the market for that size range, but this pops it out of the water, over double the foot-pounds of torque. It's shorter, it is fatter, the battery's smaller, it is more compact, it has more features with the 3-mode tightening. That said, that's one of the reasons why I wasn't going to look at the M18 Compact, because the M18 Compact, which is here, is essentially the same impact for the M18 platform rather than the M12 platform. So, power. This one, for a long time I thought was 210 foot-pounds of torque. But I just checked Milwaukee's website and it says up to 250 foot-pounds of torque now. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I'm assuming on the M12 platform that the 6.0 XC battery, 4.0 XC battery gives this gun more power, more torque than a 2.0 or a CP3.0, which is what I'm running on this. The CP3.0 is one of my favorite batteries for this and the other M12 tools, because it gives you a decent amount of runtime while still being the CP very small design, not having that big foot like the XC batteries have on them. And for a stubby impact, size means everything. You want it as small and compact as possible to get into tight areas. So on the M18, you got this big M18 battery on the bottom. So you're not going to be able to get into as many places as you can with this one. But power-wise, they're basically the same. 250 foot-pounds here, up to 250 foot-pounds here. So we can interpret that whatever way we want to interpret that from Milwaukee. As far as size goes, if this will focus, they're essentially the exact same size. If you look though, the M12 Stubby is actually a hair longer from the tip of the anvil to the back of the motor housing. The M12 Stubby does have a little bit of a taper up to the nose cone, whereas this is flat across and cylindrical, mainly due to the fact that new tri-LED compared to the old single LED. Which this is the same setup as the new mid-torque. Used it for the last week. Really like the tri-LED. It really lights up the work area much better than this. It does have Milwaukee's True View LEDs, which are more the color of natural light, compared to other LEDs that have a bluish tint to them. Honestly, myself, I do prefer the artificial looking LED light, this blue tinted. Not really a big fan of the True View, although it's negligible. I think it mainly comes down to my color blindness is my reasoning behind my preference for one color of light or the other. But anyway, I digress. So, why did we come out with this? Why did Milwaukee come up with this tool? What's the point of this when we have this? So, it all comes down to this, the battery. A lot of you guys are invested in the M12 platform already, have lots of M12 batteries and chargers and M12 tools, and honestly, if you're in the automotive field professionally as a technician, and you're not invested in the M12 platform, you need to look at it, because it is a great platform with both their straight and 90-degree die grinder, the stubby impact in both quarter and half inch, not quarter, 3/8 and half inch, the fuel 1/4 inch impact, the fuel screwdriver, the ratchets. There's a lot of good M12 tools for the automotive trade. So again, where does this come in? It's basically for you guys that are in the M18 platform and don't have M12 stuff. So basically the exact same size, power output, everything. It's just M18 battery powered instead of M12 battery powered. So with this tool, as you see, I've got a HO CP30 on here. This is one of my favorite M18 batteries for 3 reasons. Size, power, and price. Right now, or every once in a while, you can find the 2-pack of these on special for $99. I think Home Depot's got them still for $99 right now. Acme Tools, I believe, has them for $99. Tool Up had them for 90 bucks even. I don't know if that promotion is still going on. I posted it in the video, I think Saturday, but pretty cheap. These are wider. They do have the 21700 cells in them, so they give you more oomph than, say, a 18650 celled 50, 40, 30, 90 battery. They have just that little bit more oomph being the 21700 cell. Another reason why I love them. And 2, the size. They are very flat, very compact. As I said, they are a little bit wider because of the cell, but they are still smaller and lighter than a 50 battery pack, and you only lose 2 amp hours of runtime, which isn't that much. If you've got 2 of these and a supercharger or a rapid charger, you're not going to burn through one before the other one's charged, so you'd be good on that. So, talked about the lights, talked about the power modes. This one does have the 4 power modes, like this one has the 4 power modes, 1, 2, 3 for tightening and loosening, and then the auto stop bolt feature where it runs it down to snug, or when it breaks it loose, it slows down once it's broken loose. So again, they're pretty much the same guns aside from the little bit more compact size of the head on this and the tri-LEDs compared to this, and the batteries. That's basically the main difference. So we're going to do some real-world testing. We're going to go out into the Subaru junkyard, the Subaru salvage yard, and start breaking loose some fasteners. I know a lot of you in the last video on the mid-torque gun were like, wish you had like a test rig set up where you could torque fasteners and take them loose, so we know the torque they were specifically torqued to, which honestly, in my opinion, doesn't tell you much. When I look at a power tool, especially an impact, I would rather see a video of it out in a junkyard somewhere, or in a real world scenario, taking loose rusty fasteners, fasteners that have not been loosened in 10 years or more, stuff of that nature. When you're in a laboratory controlled environment with new fasteners, greased and torqued to a specification, a 200 foot-pound torqued brand new fastener that's greased and torqued and all proper and clean is not going to take off the exact same way as a 200 foot-pound torque bolt that's been in an engine or a frame for 15 years. That's just not a real-world scenario, and these are going to be used in a real-world scenario. These are not going to be used in a test lab. These are going to be used by automotive technicians, by tradesmen, equipment mechanics, you know, etc. in the real world on real equipment, not on test rigs. So let's show them being used in real-world applications. So that said, let's get outside and start doing some testing. All right, guys, as far as testing goes, we're going to run a 3.0 HO, brand spanking new, bought 1120 on the M18. On the M12 Stubby, we're gonna run an XC 3.0, brand new, bought 1120. So same battery, amp hours, same sales as far as I know. I think the XC's run 21700. I might be wrong, it might be 18650, but was as close as we can get between an M12 battery and an M18 battery. So we're just gonna go through and see what it'll break loose, see what it won't. All right, so for these tests, we're gonna be in power mode 3, which is the most potent power mode. We'll use the auto stop feature in a few shots. I'll tell you when I'm using it. And let's get at it. These are 12mm nuts on a strut mount on the front of an Outback. That's on the M18. And switching over to the M12. Not much difference at all in the power. Let's see what else we got. All right, moving on, we've got a 14mm headed bolt here on the side of the frame rail. First with the M18 and with the M12. No problem. Okay, so here's one for us I'm actually gonna torque before we try it, just because this is easy to get to, easy to film, and I've already broken it loose on another video. So easy 30D, we're gonna torque our crank pulley bolt to 160 foot-pounds, which was the older specification for this before they started asking you to degree the bolt. And we'll see if each can take it loose. This isn't a great test because we have already taken it loose and we're gonna torque it, then immediately remove it, compared to it being on there for, 10 years or so without being touched. So let's go ahead and torque her down to 160. And we'll get the M18 compact out here and see if it can take loose this 22mm, 160 foot-pound torqued crank bolt. Then we'll try the M12 Stubby after we re-torque it. Probably would be more advantageous if I had a deep well 3/8 22, but all I've got is a shallow. So the beefier deep well socket with more weight probably would help with this if this doesn't take it loose. But let's just test it and see what happens. Again, power mode 3. Let's see what happens. And no good. The compact will not take loose that crank bolt torqued to 160 foot-pounds with a shallow 3/8 22 mil. That said, I'm probably gonna go grab a 1/2" 22 and an adapter and see if that makes a difference. Adapters normally cut torque output, but having a heavier socket for it to hammer against sometimes will help it take loose higher torqued fasteners. All right, guys, switched over to a 1/2" 22 mil shallow snap-on with a 3/8 to 1/2" adapter. Now that we've got a little bit more mass on the end of this impact, let's see what it'll do against this bolt. And there you go, it pulled it right out. It did take a little bit of time, but note for you, if your impact is not removing something, try a bigger socket. Sometimes giving a little bit more mass on the end will help remove a stubborn fastener. If you've ever worked on Honda cars and had to remove a Honda crank pulley bolt, you know that they're a nightmare. But Lyle and a couple other companies came up with the idea that if you put a double thickness, double weighted socket on the end of your impact, it will take those Honda crank pulley bolts out without having to get a much more powerful impact. So a little bit more mass on the end of the gun gives you a little bit more oomph. As you saw, that 22 3/8 didn't do nothing but rattle that thing back and forth. We put that fatter socket on there with more mass and it took it right out. So we'll go ahead and re-torque that, use the same bigger socket and adapter on the Stubby and see if it will pull it out. So most likely this gun still will not remove Subaru crank pulley bolts in car. Perhaps you'd have enough room removing the radiator to get that gun in there with the 1/2" socket and the adapter. But most likely I think you'd run into the condenser. So just keep that in mind. And 160 foot-pounds once more. And we'll try the M12 Stubby to see if it's got enough oomph with that socket to remove it. So here we are with the M12 Stubby, power mode 3. Again, a little bit of a delay because it's got to hammer enough power through that fatter socket to get it moving, but it took it out. So it can do it. So while we're here at the front of this Outback, let's knock loose a couple bolts. Try 14 mil here for the idler. No problem there. We've taken some of this stuff loose before when we tried out the M12 right angle impact. So, I mean, this is the kind of work that you're going to be doing with this gun. This is what this is meant for. This is not for doing heavy suspension work. This is not for doing, you know, working on large equipment. This is not for big fasteners. I see this gun and the M12 Stubby and the M12 right angle. These are best suited in the automotive trade for 3/8 inch drive. I really don't see the point of getting them in the 1/2 inch drive. The torque output on these, the working torque for them, and what you're going to be putting them on is best suited for 8 to 19 millimeter headed fasteners, which is, you know, the normal range for 3/8 drive socketry items. So getting a 1/2 inch, I don't know if having the 1/2 inch anvil would make that much difference, say on like that 160 foot-pound torqued crank pulley bolt. But you know, like I said, I think this is mainly best suited for 3/8 inch drive, 8 to 19 millimeter fasteners. You're not going to have an issue taking that kind of stuff loose with 250 foot-pounds of torque. It's great for stuff like this, replacing a power steering pump, replacing an alternator, removing any kind of accessory drive, removing anything from the timing assembly on an EJ or an EZ. It's going to be good for taking intake manifold bolts out, exhaust manifold bolts out, removing exhaust. Lighter suspension work like we saw the top mounts for the struts, body work for taking off door hinges, taking off the hinges on the hatch, taking off front bumper bolts, all that stuff. There's a wide array of uses for this and its compact size to get around the engine bay and get into this stuff. So that's a lot of a disappointment I see with people, especially with the M12 right angle. A lot of people hated that. I got a lot of messages on my review of that, it was a worthless tool and they hated it and it didn't do what they wanted it to do, but I've had no complaints of it. I've used it, not as much as I've used the M12 Stubby, but I've used it quite a bit, and you know, it's done what I've needed it to because I bought it in 3/8 drive and I keep it in that 3/8 drive range for the tool. It's working range that you would expect for it to work in. But the other big question I get, and I was about to wrap the video up without doing this, is lug nuts. And yes, these guns are thoroughly capable of handling lug nut duty without much struggle. These seem to be over torqued. Normally, these guns will take off properly torqued Subaru 19 millimeter lug nuts a lot quicker and easier than that. That was the M18, let's try the 12. So, yeah, not really an issue. There's a lot of corrosion and rust in here. So these probably haven't been off for a while. We will go really quickly and knock off some lug nuts on a properly torqued Subaru wheel. And we'll close out trying to take the 22 millimeter lug nut loose on my Duramax dually. All right, so let's just go ahead and properly torque these lugs to 120 Newton meters, and then we'll run the guns on them again to see how easily or how difficult it is to get the lug nuts loose. All right, so now they're properly torqued 120 Newton meters as they should be. Let's see what the M18 Compact will do. Much easier taking them off than the other vehicle. So, well within working torque for lug nuts, especially on Subaru vehicles, than the M12. Exact same power output, exact same response from both. All right, guys, so really quickly before we wrap up, here's the front of my 2004 Sierra 3500 dually. 22 millimeter lugs, torqued to 140 foot-pounds. Again, we're gonna use the adapter and the 1/2" 22 to give a little bit more mass to the impacts, and we'll see if it'll take these loose here. Yep, M18 did it, no problem. Try the M12. M12's having a little bit of an issue. Yeah, M12 just doesn't have the pep to do it. We'll try the M18 on that same lug. Now the M18's struggling now. Might have just got lucky on that one lug right there, but they should all have been torqued with the same torque wrench to 140 foot-pounds. Now it took that one loose. Let's see if the M12 will take one of these others loose. Well, the M12 got one loose, so it's pretty much hit and miss on if it'll take loose a 22 mil lug on a 1-ton truck. But again, out of the normal working torque, working load that I think these tools should be used for. All right, guys, that does it for the testing portion of the video. As you saw, this is the prime example why I like to do real world testing, taking nuts and bolts loose on actual vehicles as compared to a controlled test rig with brand new fasteners torqued and then promptly removed. You saw that bolt, that crank bolt was torqued to 160 foot-pounds. We did it right there with the torque wrench, and the gun did not take them loose, even though they're rated at 250 foot-pounds of torque. Now, a lot of that, as I said, came down to the fact that we were using a 3/8" drive shallow socket. The socket has a lot to do with the potential for the impact to do work. You have a larger socket, a thicker walled socket with more weight, more mass to it, and you have an advantage to that impacting tool compared to a thinner walled, smaller, shallower socket with less weight. So as you saw, we didn't get it off with the regular 22. Had I had a 22 millimeter 3/8" drive deep well, it might have taken it off, but I think it still would have struggled. The fact that we moved up to a 1/2" drive and had that thicker sidewall and more weight is what really got it that extra oomph to take that bolt loose. And again, we saw that with the 22 millimeter lugs on the Duramax dually. Again, only 140 foot-pounds of torque on those, but still kind of struggled and didn't get a lot of them off until we switched up to that 1/2" drive. Even with the 1/2" drive socket on there, I don't think it would have budged with the 3/8" socket. So when it all comes down to it, the main difference between if you're getting the M12 Stubby or the M18 Compact is what battery platform you're invested in and what batteries you have on hand. As you saw, there's not much difference between them, only slightly smaller with the Compact. You got the better lights. That's basically it. You know, they're basically got the exact same working capabilities as the other. So, still love this gun. Kind of wish I hadn't bought this gun because these basically fill the exact same void. But you guys wanted to see this gun, wanted a comparison between the two guns, and wanted to see this one working. So yeah, they're both great guns, just depending on what platform you are in. Again, if you're doing automotive work, you should be invested in the M12 lineup. Lots of great tools for the automotive field, and you get that little bit extra space with the M12 battery compared to the M18 on these impacts. So, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.